He's best known to audiences from that time as Timmy Lee. His old mate, England cricketing hero Ian Botham, calls him Squiffy. The great British director and satirist Lindsay Anderson once described him as a working-class hero. And the successful Queen's Park Rangers football team of the mid-70s simply knew him as Confessions. Will you all give a warm hand on his entrance for Mr. Robin Askwith?
I was asked recently whether I'd been I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, and they, in the interview, they said, look, would you mind, we put you in and you might, there'd be snakes and things going up your arse and stuff, and would that worry you? I said, I've done 10 weeks with Ian Botham in pantomime, nothing worries me. So, okay, sorry, Robin. No, yes.
Okay, now in the intro there I explained how important you are to 1970s British culture, but do you find that a sort of limiting description? Do you consider yourself the 70s on legs, or is there more to it?
Actually, somebody asked me the other day, I was doing Canterbury Tales in Nottingham a couple of months ago, a month ago, and somebody from the Leicester Mercury said, so what was it like? Shagging your way through show business. I thought, what a way to describe my career. Is that how it was? And obviously there's a little bit more to it than that. Sure. Shagging my way through the ages as well. What was the question? I forgot. No, you're asking about the 70s. No, I went to university. I went to Bristol University and studied English and drama, and just to extend what you're asking about the 70s, and I intended to be a classical actor, and then it all went right for me. I wasn't.
Okay, well let's go from the start of your movie career. You worked in the early days of your career on even then you were working on fairly diverse movies. You worked in If for Lindsay Anderson, and also appeared in a lead role in Call It Carol for Pete Walker, who's a very familiar figure to the audience here.
And to the VAT and the a few other people. No, If was pursuing my classical career. I was doing English dramas at Bristol, and I was playing Richard III, and it's the old gag of Richard III Lost. But I was a great fan of Peter Sellers, particularly with the nose, and he did a great album with Irene Handel. Yeah. When he did the Hard Day's Night and everything, the Laurence Olivier thing. So I did a complete copy of Richard III as Laurence Olivier with this huge nose. And under the lights it melted, and it started to sort of dribble down my face. And I was a kid, I was 16, 17, and I turned to the audience and I went, a nose, my kingdom. And I thought that was quite clever, and iambic ad-libbed. And Lindsay Anderson, I was then told you would never be in any more productions. Finished. I said, the nose was coming off. And Lindsay Anderson, it was like the magic of showbiz, flicked me his card and said, I'm making a film about rebellious public school boys, and would you come along for an audition? Okay. And that's how it really all started. And Lindsay was a friend of mine until the day he died. Yeah. In fact, Lindsay Anderson's last words to me were, he told me all about his illness and everything else. I said, I was going, at the end of the day. I said, at the end of the day, Linz, I said, which was the expression of the time. At the end, he said, Robin, let me just stop you. At the end of the day, he said, it was dark. Those were his last words.
Very true, very true. Okay, I mentioned Pete Walker as well, who you worked in Call It Carol for, and also appeared in several of his early 70s horror movies. What are your memories of Pete?
The first film I made from was Call It Carol.
Yeah.
which actually was based on...
Was that your first lead role?
No, my first lead role, believe it or not, was a film called, which no one's... People come up to with the most extraordinary things, sort of bits of thing from this and that, and Mark Bolan's, whatever. But the first lead I ever played was a Hollywood film called Hans Peter and the Silver Skates. And I dare any of you to have a copy of that. I dance and sing on ice, folks. And with Richard Basehart, John Gregson, Eleanor Parker, and a guy called Cyril Richards. Does that mean anything to anybody? Cyril Richards. And that was my first lead. I was in Hollywood.
Okay.
Which was a musical film on ice for I can't remember who it was for, but it was shot in Burbank for, not Columbia, I can't remember, but that was my first one.
So have they seen you in it then, and whisked you up?
No, I was cast in that film. They were casting, they had a lot of problem casting, this Hans Brinker character was, it was a classic film in the David Copperfield mould in America, we don't know it here. And they had trouble, and it wasn't the bloke that put his finger in the dike. What? Who said Martina Navratilova? That's one of my favourite gags at the moment. How come they got a man on the moon, but they couldn't get one on Martina Navratilova? And so we auditioned a whole load of English actors, including the sort of Dennis Watermans, Richard O'Sullivans, Nicky Hensons, me.
All your mates, basically.
All my mates. We auditioned for this great chance to go to Hollywood, but we had to ice skate. But I just lied. I said, can you sing? Yeah. Can you dance? Yeah. Can you ice skate? Yeah, I barrel jump at Streatham. And unfortunately, I eventually had to skate, and it was dreadful. I had to go and learn for 2 weeks.
Okay. So I keep coming back to Pete Walker. Let's hear.
Pete Walker. Pete Walker. So
you he
I had an agent at the time called Hayes Malone, who was the agent of the time. Judy Geeson, Malcolm McDowell, Richard O'Sullivan, Jeremy Bullock. There was a whole load of us that were with her, and she became quite friendly with Peter Walker. And he had this lead in this film called It Carol, and it was a script. It was originally called Oh Carol, and it was written by a guy called Murray Smith, who went on to do more serious
Yes, I
stuff.
think a lot of people here will know
the most, yeah.
from Strangers,
Exactly, yeah.
Paradise Club, yeah.
That's right.
Great writer.
And he wrote this script, which was based on a true story in the News of the World, and he developed it from that. And as a few people have said tonight, I think it must be Pete's best film.
Yeah.
And it's nothing to do with me being it. I just thought it was, sort of visually and in the narrative.
Sure, and he continued to use you in other movies.
I'm not going to say this.
But you appeared in Flesh and Blood Show.
Yeah, Flesh and Blood Show was gratuitous. I think he felt guilty. I did a film in between then called Four Dimensions of Greta, which I had to make love to a Swedish girl in 3 dimensions. Well, we all make love in 3 dimensions. We're supposed to, there you go. The initial flat.
Lena Skoo.
Lena Skoo, yes. How dare you? Sorry. I always thought that meant something, you know, in Swedish. I fuck off, you know. In a school. But no, it was a real person, and I had to shag her in 3 dimensions, yes. And it was very interesting.
While playing the footballer.
While playing a footballer. As opposed to while playing with a footballer. And I went to see the film with a guy called Richard Warwick, who's now dead, who's a friend of mine who was in it. And it was great to sit there and now put on your special glasses, whatever it was, and you put on these glasses, and suddenly you've got Lena Skoo's tits, like, but slightly off, a bit green, and, perhaps we should have them the other way. It didn't quite work, if anyone's ever seen it. It didn't quite work. The sort of tits were a bit greeny, bluey, brown, and you got my face sort of giving it. I've done that in more films.